All right, I'll suggest we start. So welcome everyone. As you may have seen, welcome to this webinar. My name is Martin Gramling. I'm in charge of the Tech and Services department here in Business France Düsseldorf, working with alongside 6 other German-speaking persons. We are based in Düsseldorf and we're working in the whole Germany, in the whole country. And our goal is to help French digital companies and startups to succeed all over the country. And I have the pleasure to welcome you to this webinar dedicated to the ongoing situation and how local tech actors and entrepreneurs adapted to the situation and how they see the post-containment period. Just as a quick reminder, as we had to change our plans, I'll please ask you for the persons attending the conference to turn off their camera and microphones. And you'll have the possibility to ask your questions directly through the chat of the conversation. My colleague Corentin is going to take your questions. First up, we're going to have around 40-minute sessions with our guests. So in order of appearance, Stéphane Velay, who's the managing director of Quizbox in Germany. He's based in Stuttgart. After Stefan, we'll have Vidar Andersen, a Norwegian based in Düsseldorf, and among other things, serial entrepreneur and who accompanies and work with large German companies and SMEs in their innovation policy and strategy. And last but not least, we have as our guest speakers Fred Berner. Fred, you are the managing director of the French Franco-German Chamber of Commerce, and you are based in Saarbrücken. So before giving the mic to Stefan, a quick introduction. You've maybe seen through the news, you may have heard that life is slowly but surely coming back to normal in Germany with big parenthèse, as I would say in French. Shops are now open again with strict protection measures. It's mandatory to have your protective masks, as you can see. The Bundesliga, the German Football League, and I know that Stefan is going to talk about it, should be underway pretty soon. Restaurants should open up during the months in May and June. And there have been pretty big announcements about the help package designed by the German government. We're going to address this topic later on, but Stefan, I know that you are going to speak about it. The €2 billion package dedicated specifically for startups. But maybe I'll pass the mic to you, Stefan, because I know that you had some other figures to share with us.
Yes. Bonjour à tous. I will share my screen. You see my screen? It's okay? Good. Perfect. So, let me 1 second. Exactly. So, bonjour à tous. My name is Stéphane Velay. I'm managing director of this company, Quizbox Solutions GmbH in Stuttgart. Our company is a French company developing voting solutions. We started our activity on the German market in 2016 and created the GmbH in 2018. We are one of the key players in Germany in our area. Our clients are schools, universities using our solutions for teaching, companies for corporate training, events, association. We have political assemblies also. And one of our important clients at this time is the German football league, the Bundesliga, who played a big role in the last weeks for us. So I wanted to start my presentation with some current figures about Germany. If you look first at the estimated growth for this year, you could think the economy will be affected by the crisis in the same way, but the economy did not start with the same situation. If you look at the unemployment rate, if you look at the debt in Germany, and the money that the government has available to help the companies. So the unemployment was starting very low. We are sometimes speaking about 2 or 3% in Stuttgart at this time. Short-time work I was surprised, still limited compared to France. So you can expect the German economy to recover faster than France. And there's another big difference with France is the public opinion. The German people are very satisfied with the government. There are some statistics that show until 90% are satisfied with the policy of Merkel regarding the crisis management. Not all think that Germany is in a very bad situation at this time. So they are mainly optimistic about the future. So living in Germany and working in Germany, I've seen a lot of change. My wife is also working at home for another company. So I see a lot of change. And I wanted to summarize it for you. We don't know if the lockdown will partially remain some weeks, some months. So officially the lockdown is partly ended this week. But we don't know if it will take some weeks, some months, perhaps 1 year until everything is normal. And the longer it remains, the more permanent this change will be. So I listed some changes. It's about focus on local regional partners, less from Far East. It's about companies getting comparative instead of competing. It's about employees demanding more autonomy, meaningful work, the increase in working from home. There are about 60% of employees wanting to work from home in the future. The government is preparing a law that it gives the right for employees to work at home if they want. You have to expect reduction of business trips, more online meetings. The fact that people will not have to commute to go to work and save some travel time may increase the productivity of the companies. Conferences and fairs might be less attractive for companies, even if Germany was known as the biggest fairs in the world. They may be replaced by investment in marketing, by social media and so on. Physical contacts are replaced by digital services, going very fast at this time for administration, for retailers. We have some restaurants in Germany, in Stuttgart, that are now going online, where they had only physical contact before. You could expect investment in internet in particular, which was very low until now. And in general, organization will be more resilient to face some crises like this. And one big topic I wanted to talk about was Digitalisierung, the digital transformation in Germany, which is completely changing at this time. Germany was very behind regarding digital transformation. One reason was the risk aversion that you have in the German business culture, that decisions are taking time, and they like proven solutions rather than innovation. They will not be able to change so quickly. So normally introducing a new software, a new tool in a company, it takes years, because you have the laws, you have the bureaucracy, you have some IT security people in your company, you have the privacy policies, and you have the workers' council that have to accept this. So it's taking normally very long time to introduce, I will say, a collaborative tool. And this was reduced in an incredible record time in the last months. We have companies that enabled within 1, 2, 3 days access to all company apps from home. They were able to implement tools, as I say, within days. We have a state who made different laws enabling association. As an example, it's important for our business to take decision online, not in physical. Also, the workers' council So the state reacted very, very quickly so that a decision could be made by association, and the administration deployed also digital services in a record time. As they introduced the immediate help for small companies, the companies got within 3 days after having registered the money on the bank account, which is not usual for Germany. So what would be then the opportunities for French companies or for French companies already having a subsidiary here? You could think, oh, this is over. They are opening everything now, so we are getting back to normal. You don't know, so it could take a while, and there's a high demand, and it will continue for all technologies linked to online shopping, to e-government, to homeschooling. And French companies have something to offer in these areas. In my opinion, I don't know if it's in the statistics, but I heard this also from German ministry, from a ministry of Baden-Württemberg. The number of startups is not so high like in France. If you look at Baden-Württemberg, Stuttgart, salaries are very high. You have full employment. People do not want to create companies where they do not earn money at the beginning. They are going to Mercedes, Bosch, Porsche, and so on. So there are less startup. And in the culture, you have the culture of if you want to make innovation, introduce a new online platform, and so on, you have to plan it. And you cannot react so fast like a French company. And if there are opportunities for French companies, still you need the culture. You need to know the culture. You need to have some reliability for your clients. So you need to be in Germany and have proven your experience there. I will finish with how we reacted to this crisis as a company, as a company in Germany, QuizBox Germany. It's about knowing who we are and invest on this, create something adapted to the current situation, and do it really quickly. So what we were doing was interaction in physical events. What happened was a lockdown and a cancellation for us for all events from March to August. On the day before the changeover point, the lockdown, we had a last physical assembly of the German Football Liga in Frankfurt. It was the day before. The next day they could not meet. And they call us on the next day and ask, oh, okay, we are doing it physical with we have no cloud solution for this. This is all physical. We want in 2 weeks to do it online. And there are big decisions about the future of Bundesliga. And we got it. We got it because we were able, or our French colleagues who are developing, were able within 2 weeks to implement something, to prototype, to test, to be able to deliver for the German Liga, who had no other solution at this time to be able to vote online for the next assembly. So we fulfilled their demands very quickly, where our competitors in Germany were not able to react so rapidly. And we have completely changed within April our marketing from physical to online. It means completely change the SEO, the all Google ads and so on, all our brochures, internet. And now we are starting. We are getting a lot of demands in this area. We are getting a lot of contracts in this area. And then the friends came. So we initiated it. We made the friends make the development, and now they are profiting from this. And just as small remarks, currently we are starting in Lyon. The Conseil Municipal of Lyon is the second one after Nantes, and Paris is coming, and they use our technologies because the German initiated this technology some weeks ago. So it's a nice story regarding the crisis and Germany. So that's it. What I wanted to tell you.
Thank you, Stefan. So as a wrap up, I understood while preparing the workshop that you were more reactive than your German competitor, and that can definitely be a strength for French startups. And one of the key words were the adaptation. And during the transition towards Vida, I just wanted to remind you that Stefan and Vida are also going to be two of our mentors for our acceleration program, Impact Germany, which is going to take place this year between June and February 2021, and whose goal is to help French startups and French digital companies to maintain their position in this situation in Germany. So that being said, Vida, yesterday you talked about adaptation, that it was key, that there was a certain type of adaptation that you would advise startups to do right now.
Absolutely. Let me maybe shortly touch upon who I am and why I'm talking here today. My name is, as you said, Peter Anderson. I'm a Norwegian national. I've been living in Germany now since 2005. And I'm based in Düsseldorf in the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, close in the middle of Germany, but close to the border of the Netherlands. For those who don't know, I guess French are also very well acquainted with geography. I'm used to speaking to Americans, so I always have to place me on the map. Basically, not to speak too long about myself, I spend my time mainly with three things. I found my own tech startups, so I'm an entrepreneur from time to time. I founded some successful stuff, some not so successful. And I do help startups as an investor, as an advisor, as an educator. And also, as you mentioned, I help large brands and medium enterprises to get measurable results with digitization and innovation with my company, plusanderson.com. And that's probably all you need to know about me. You can find more information about me at peteranderson.com, probably more information that my mother wants to know about me. But I'm not here today to speak about myself. I'm here to speak about the current situation in Germany. And let me start with the situation for startups. Of course, it's a complicated time. There's no doubt about it. Most businesses, including startups, are in some way or form affected. On the positive side, though, I was surprised to see only yesterday that there are a whole bunch of startups that are still hiring. So I guess that's a healthy sign. In the state of NRW, that is North Rhine-Westphalia at least, there's plenty of startup jobs available. If you check, for instance, I think startupjoblist.com, there are any number of open positions at, I think, 100 and at least over 100 companies. So that's a good thing. And as it was mentioned, there are support programs for businesses already from the state. There are mainly three programs. There's one program only for the COVID-19 crisis that came in place for what we call solo entrepreneurs, like Selbstständige, as they call it in German, and small companies with not too many employees. Whereas you could get money in a super fast manner, where basically for like the first time ever, I can remember you could actually apply online and it worked. It didn't necessarily crash. And actually you got a cash subsidiary from the state for your business expenses with almost no questions asked. We're going to probably have to find out how all of this is going to work out at the end, but at least there was a very speedy, super non-pragmatic, no bureaucracy involved way from the German government side to get some cash out into probably the guys who are and girls who are most affected, the small companies who may not be venture backed, who maybe not have enough cash in the bank to survive that long without new business. So kudos to that. And for the established medium to large companies that have been running for a long time, there were already programs in place, mostly credits and loans. They were updated to make it even easier and I guess also a little bit more favorable terms so that you can get credit and or well basically loans at favorable terms, but they also, of course, needs to be paid back. So I guess we'll see also later in the future if there is going to be a ramification, depending on how many people, how many companies had to go into further, or maybe for the first time go into debt, depending on how much business actually returns. And of course, there's different social security programs already in place, which is of course different from other countries outside of mainly Europe. As you know, we've already heard about Kurzarbeit, which is a way for basically the government to subsidize the wages of your employees if you are having a reduced workload or less sort of work happening because of the crises. So we are already seeing companies, of course, using this, and this also enables people to stay in their jobs, and we're of course not seeing the massive layoffs that we've seen mostly outside of Europe. And for startups, that there's been talk about this 2 billion care package, which it's great. The not so great part is that the details are not really completely yet fleshed out, but I guess if it involves 2 billion euros, it's going to take some time to flesh out the details. The good news is also it's supposed to be ready in May. And for venture-backed startups, there will at least be a 70-30 fund matching. That is to say, the state's organ of funding, the KfW Capital and European Investment Fund, will be able to join at 70% in your funding round if your investor are getting cold feet or if you're having a problem raising your money for the next round. Now the investor, the accredited investor, can get KfW Capital or the European Investment Fund on board for 70% of the round, which should probably also, of course, I have to mention, at the same terms. So that could ease some of the worries for some startups. Also, by the way, this is also open to, as far as I can understand, like I said, it's not completely fleshed out yet, but it's also open to international investors who are already working with KfW or IEF. So it does not only pertain to German investors, but I think it only pertains to German startups. And for non-venture finance startups, I guess we have to see how it evolves. Like I said, it's supposed to get ready probably within May. But then it's up to the states, because as you might know, Germany has a federal system where it's not only based out of Berlin, it's also up to the respective states. So for the non-venture finance startups, it's supposed to be up to the respective states' funding institutions, the existing institutions, and KfW are going to be making, which I have to also probably mention, KfW is called Kasse für Wiederaufstand. There's a large public fund that are making the funds available to the state's institutions. And also there will probably be a 70-30 business angel matching opportunity, whereas we just heard about the VC venture capital backed funds will also be able to do a 70-30 deal that it will also pertain to personal investors. But as I said, these things are not completely detailed yet and remains to be seen. Now, also from my position, like you said, having to do with a lot of German businesses, medium to large enterprises on a regular basis, I do, of course, notice, as you probably all have, the sort of stereotypical German calm and composed surface. It's still not very much in turmoil. It's business as usual, but on the sort of behind the surface, most, if not all, businesses are affected in some way or form of the current crises. And there are many businesses, especially medium businesses, that have been taking advantage of the so-called Kurzarbeit. But for reasons that I'll get into, we don't have any waves of layoffs for now. I guess also one of the reasons is that it's typical of German, as they say, to have cash in the bank, to sort of not live on borrowed capital. So a lot of these companies have been able to survive so long, or are really successful as well, because they have been very conservative with the use of cash. So a lot of these companies do have money in the bank, but and also, of course, it's typical German, I would have to say, especially for companies that are owned by the founders, to think about the employees first. So it's not uncommon also to go out of their way to make sure that people can remain in their jobs. So I guess those are two factors that sort of leads to the point that we haven't seen so many layoffs for now. But if this drags on, I think layoffs will probably also be inevitable, but it just depends on the time, or if we're going to have sort of a more or return to lockdown. But what I also see, and also what we heard about, is that many businesses have sent their employees into home offices for the first time ever, with very mixed results. Many only to find out really the hard way that they're completely inexperienced with the whole experience. They have underskilled management, employees, people who just haven't had the opportunity to work this way before, and many of the time they're lacking the tools, or they're using tools that are outdated, or they just figured out the hard way that the thing that they thought they would be using just doesn't work for the task at hand. And it's amazing how fast, as we also heard, as the same experience I'm making, that it's amazing how fast the German companies have been able to adapt to this, because it's a bit more like I always say, it's like adapt or die, but this on a very short time scale, right? If they wanted to get jobs done, if they wanted to keep up business, they needed to go to a digital solution, for instance, for communication, for conference calling, and so on and so forth. But I also think that, and I hope that this will be a wake-up call, that this is not sort of a little spike, because digitization, as we all know, means more than just doing conference calls. So there's a whole lot of things to be done already, but I think it was a great opportunity for a lot of businesses to get acquainted with a different and more digital way of working very fast.
That's,
I think also, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that also Stefan mentioned. That's a first positive point, opportunity point that you both mentioned. Maybe come back to you a bit later on, Vida, as Fred didn't present itself yet and had the chance. Fred, I know that you also wanted to speak about the different packages. I'll also take the opportunity to showcase the website you wanted to show us.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Martin. Yeah, just a few words about who we are and what we do. I know you've prepared a few questions for me, so I'll use more time to answer them in the second part. I'm managing the French-German Chamber of Commerce here in Germany. We are a team of 45 talents located in Saarbrücken, just behind me, where we have our headquarters, and our main business center, and Frankfurt, where we have a second business center also. And currently, most of us are still in home office, though. What we do is we support French companies in their establishment in Germany. We are a non-profit organization, but we are 100% self-financed, so no public funding. We help French companies to set up subsidiaries in Germany. We domiciliate these subsidiaries and outsource customer relations, sales administration, accounting management. We also help them recruit their teams and manage their payrolls, etc. Among the 235 companies that we manage, that we have in our premises, around 20 are in the digital or new tech sector. Do you want me, Martin, to talk about the assistance that French digital companies can expect when they have a subsidiary in Germany? Is it the right time?
Yeah, of course. You can go ahead. And Vida also mentioned first key actors like KFB.
Exactly.
Which are the other actors which are key for people already having a subsidiary in Germany?
Yeah. First of all, German subsidiaries of French digital companies are, of course, eligible as such the support from the federal government and also from the German Länder, if they are incorporated in Germany, of course. The key players, as you put it, I would strongly recommend to contact in priority to these subsidiaries are their chartered accountant and tax advisors, or even the lawyer. We call them the tax advisors Steuerberater over here in Germany. And this is because even if the procedures, as Vidar mentioned it, set up in Germany are intended to be non-bureaucratic, the agencies in charge of the governmental support are currently facing the flood of applications, and they are at times difficult to reach for advice. So I find it best to seek professional guidance to avoid making any mistakes or forgetting to attach certain documents, which would pointlessly slow down the process. As Vidar already mentioned, the most common instrument used in Germany is short-time working, as they call it here, Kurzarbeit, reduced employment. Now, just to give you an idea, there are currently more than 800,000 companies using it in Germany for around 10 million employees, and it costs the German state almost 10 billion euros per month. Just to give you a comparison, in the whole of 2019, there were 16,500 applications from companies for 375,000 employees. So compared to the 10 million we have now, it's, you know, very different situation. And the applications for this scheme are made at the local employment agency. We call it Bundesagentur für Arbeit here. And at this stage, as Vidar mentioned, this has helped to contain job losses. The unemployment rate in Germany in April 2020 is 5.8%, which is not 1% higher than April 2019. A second part and the second mechanism is the so-called Soforthilfe. Vidar mentioned it already, this emergency aid designed for small businesses and self-employed people. This is a non-refundable subsidy to help meet recurrent expenditures for 3 months, such as rent, electricity bills, etc. It's partly financed by the state, up to 15,000 euros for firms with less than 10 employees. And depending on the region where the company is located, it can be supplemented for firms with more than 10 and less than 50 employees. For example, in the land of Hessen, where we have one of our office and where Frankfurt is located, you could get up to 30,000 euros for 3 months if you have between 10 and 50 employees. And the applications for this aid can be made until the end of May. And all the contacts and the contacts that are dedicated within each land for this aid can be found on our website. Thank you for showing it. It's www.ccfa.de/publications/COVID-19. So there you will have all the details about all these aids that are available, and also the contacts that are available for these aids. And the last word I would have regarding these aid and packages is the bank loan guarantees that are granted by the Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau, these KfW Vidar already mentioned. This is the equivalent of the French Caisse des Dépôts. And there you can get a 100% guaranteed credit by your bank, and it's guaranteed by the KfW to 100%. So the banks will, give it granted without too much hesitation, and it goes up to 3 months of 2019 turnover, with a maximum of 500k euros for companies with less than 50 employees, and a maximum of 800k euros for those with more than 50 employees. So that's one solution. And the second solution is if you need amounts above these limits, 500 or 800,000 euros, then you could get loans that are guaranteed to 90% for companies with less than 250 employees, or to 80% for those with more than 250 employees. And that's for loans up to 1/4 of your turnover 2019, or 18 months of cash, or 2 times the salary cost of your company. And here the partners and the key actors are the banks. in particular the main bank of every company, what we call here the house bank. They are the people you have to talk to get these grants. And last point, maybe for this aspect, is I have to mention that certain aspects do penalize some of the French subsidiaries that we have as a clients, because some of the existing aids are only for older companies. Some aids are only available for companies that exist since 3 or even 5 years. Or at least since the 1st of January 2019. And also sometimes one of the penalizing aspect is that they grant only these aids to companies that were financially sound before the beginning of the crisis, or even sometimes before the end of 2019. So this is why it's important to be accompanied by an expert who can study the eligibility of your company before applying for the aid, because it will spare you a lot of time. If he finds out you cannot get the aid, you'll spare the time for doing the application. That's it for this point.
All right, thanks. I'm opening up the round of questions to Vidar, Stefan, and Fred. Don't hesitate. Once again, you should have a bar at the bottom of your screen where you can also, your audience, directly ask your questions, and Corentin will select them and then ask them to Stefan, Vidar, and Fred. Fred, I had a first question for you, and it was also to do the transition with what Vidar said about the traditional mindset of the Germans stacking up money, piling up huge amount of cash money. I was personally amazed by the amounts of the different local governments and the federal government, the amount of money that the government, in comparison to France, for instance, was ready to inject to help its economy. My question is as followed: do you think that in a way, Germany benefited from all this year of Schwarze Null policy?
Yes, definitely. Of course, this crisis will have severe effects on the German economy, no doubt. Estimates for 2020 as well as for the following years are still uncertain, and it will depend on the scenarios for exiting lockdown and return to a certain level of normality for various sectors of activity. But and let's not forget that it's not only a question of industrial and commercial supply, it's also a question of demand. So let's be very careful. There's no point, in running car factories at full capacity now, as long as private and professional consumers are not in a position to buy vehicles. There are still huge stocks of unsold vehicle over here. But as you said, the German economy has been following this Schwarze Null policy for years, and especially since the last crisis of 2009, and now this gives them a lot of means to overcome the crisis. Just to mention the figures that were recently given by the Minister of Economy, Peter Altmaier. In the first quarter of 2020, Germany suffered a decline of its GDP of -2%. France has lost 5.8%. And the German government anticipates a decline of 6.3% for the whole of 2020, where France is expecting a 10% decrease. And they're expecting a U-shaped recovery in 2021 to end the year 2021 with a plus of 5.2% in GDP and also a plus of 7.6% in exports. And the back to normality and to the pre-crisis GDP and export levels is expected for the second half of 2022. But as you said, the answer that's been given by the federal government and the Länder to deal with this economic crisis is massive. But what is notable in Germany is Chancellor Merkel's attitude and decision so far in consultation with the presidents of the Länders. It was all aimed at promoting a return to a certain normality as soon as possible. And for example, the building and public works sector has never been stopped over here. Schools have reopened since the beginning of this week for all the pivotal and examination classes. So have retail points of sale, even larger than 800 square meters, as long as there's no more than one customer per 20 square meter in the shop. We also expect, as you mentioned, restaurants to open during the month of May for some lenders. So these are all signs that the show must go on for the sake of economy. And you also mentioned what some observers from other countries might have seen as a weakness in the first place, namely the federal structure of the country, with locally differing applications of certain decisions taken by the government. But finally, it proved to be a factor of flexibility, adaptation to local particularities, and a very good benchmark of what works and what does not work so well. So I agree with you, Martin. And on the financial level, it's obvious that Germany has room for action thanks to this Schwarze Null policy. In addition to the 10 billion euros that short-time working costs every month, and I already mentioned, they have voted at the end of March 1,200 billion euros of support to grant the loans I mentioned earlier, the emergency aid, bond loan guarantees, and investment in equity capital for strategic sectors, reduction of VAT for on-site restaurants. It's going to pass from 19% to 7%. All this represent 1/3 of the German GDP, and just as much as the German reunification has cost. And despite this expenditure, Germany, like the Netherlands for that matter, will have a debt level of only 68.7% of GDP by the end of this year, where France is going to have 115%. So yes, Martin, Germany has to be a priority export destination for our digital entrepreneurs, as well as for entrepreneurs from other sectors, no doubt about that.
All right, thanks for your input. Corentin, I'm passing out the mic as we have a first question.
Yes, thank you to all of you. And as Martin said, we have our first question from Thomas Vial, and there is two parts in this question. The first part is so the question is regarding big corporates, and Thomas is wondering if they will still push the innovation now, and especially thanks to a new project. And the second part of the question is which type of relationship did these big corporates develop with the EU innovative startup ecosystem? And yes, to sum it up, will the big corporates wait and see or stand up regarding startup innovation? If one of you want to answer the question, Vidar?
Be happy to. So I guess the question in sum was, will large corporations step up to the task and suddenly develop a new sense of speed and urgency? I think the question, at least based on my experience working with companies like this for now, since the mid-90s, is a resounding no. What usually happens in a time of crises is suck it and see, especially in a large tanker that is an international or large national corporation. I do not think, based on experience, that large corporations will now suddenly do everything differently. I do, of course, see that as the opportunity for the smaller, more agile startups to go and eat the whole cake ever so slowly from these kinds of companies that are not able to react. But I mean, based on experience, I think we clearly see that large companies need a lot of time to react, and when in doubt, people postpone making decisions because it can hurt your career. It can, I mean, there's probably a lot of uncertainty, and when there's a lot of uncertainty in a corporate setting, you usually postpone until the uncertainty goes away. Sometimes that works, sometimes you postponed it enough that someone else ate your cake. That's my clear opinion.
If I may just add something to this, don't forget, you're totally right with our, I agree, but don't forget that Germany is a land of medium-sized companies and most of them family-owned and that are probably more agile than these large corporates. So I agree with you, Vidar. It's difficult to imagine that larger corporates will change their project and suddenly transform into agile companies, but it might be wise to advise to our fellow citizens in France to focus maybe their approach to these medium-sized companies in Germany who might be more agile and more open for novelty.
I think that's a great heuristic to look for the companies who are owned by the family that started it or by the founders that have not yet gone public and are not necessarily international conglomerates, not run anymore by the founders, because they will have the ability to make decisions that will change things up. Whereas in a corporation, like you said, it's probably not going to happen. But that's a great heuristic. I mean, do the research on your potential customers and see who's running the show. It's great advice.
Okay, thank you. Your answer was very clear. So thank you, Frederic and Vidar. Stefan, do you want to add something about this question? Otherwise, I will read the next question that is asked to you. This is from Frank Seidel, and thank you for this question. He asked us if there are some data to back up your point that trade show will become less important in Germany, and that social media will become more important as a long-lasting trend to precise it.
I have no data. I've read a lot of articles before for preparing this presentation, and this was telling about this. And it's our experience also in our company. We had planned, I think we had 3 fairs planned from March until June, but that have been cancelled. And there are a lot of uncertainty. Do they will happen in fall next year? So at some point you start to invest in other marketing ways, because you have it depends your situation, but we had some money planned for this fairs. This is a big part of our marketing budget, and then you start to invest in something else. And you discover that you can reach more by social media, by other way, by cooperation, by partners sometimes. So it's a feeling from my side, but it was also in some articles I found in the press.
All right. Thank you, Stefan. I had a question. I had a question to ask you about the you spent about the expenditure management, and I know that's a question I asked you before this webinar. I myself attended to another webinar when one of the presentator speakers was from eVentures, so one of key capital investment companies in Germany, and this person was basically saying that for now one of the large strategies or the message that startups or digital companies had to share while addressing existing prospects or clients was, how can I help you to spare your costs, or how can I help you to cut your costs? I know that you implemented something else. Could you please maybe tell us about your opinion about this subject, cost cutting as a prospecting argument?
The question was to me, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's absolutely not what we are experiencing, but it's linked to our area. We have clients. They are searching currently for a solution. They have an urgency. They have to meet online. They never met online such political assembly like Ville de Lyon or the German Football League. They never did it. and they are searching very quickly a company they can rely on and who can deliver quickly something they need. So our clients are not driven by cost cutting, they are searching for solution at this time. The point on the cost is perhaps something was perhaps something before the crisis or after the crisis, but at this time, I think most of the companies are searching for solutions to solve their problems at this time. At least it's what we do, what's happened in our business.
Yep, I think that's something that Vidar also shared as an opinion, the fact that you have to deliver quickly deliverable operative solutions to help your potential partners or clients. Yes, Vidar, your mic is turned off. Your mic is turned off.
Thank you very much. It's great to be reminded. So I'd like to add to that maybe to qualify what I meant with that. I think that I totally agree that the priorities of medium and large companies and small companies, all companies, are going to be mostly, if not completely, focused on the short term. That is to say, what can you do right now to save time for me, or that is to say costs? Blunt cost or time, which is also of course cost. So if you had a value proposition, if you have an offering that was sort of nice to have earlier, especially for the long term, good luck with trying to get that sold in Germany right now. So I think it's important to rethink, if you're in that category, having a nice to have or long-term kind of value proposition or offering, how can I repackage that, or how can I rephrase with sort of emphasis on the things that will actually do something now in the short term? Because I do think that for the foreseeable future, and definitely within 2020, most companies, if not all companies are going to be focused on short term, because there's a high level of uncertainty. We are probably still facing, most likely, a lot of uncertainty. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, viruses do not obey political decisions, so we do not know what we are going to be facing after we are sort of unlocking a lot of the steps that we already taken. So I think it's a great advice to be thinking much more, if not completely, on short-term gains, because that's what you need to present. That's completely correct. I completely echo what Stefan said.
All right, so rather switching to short-term questions. Last question on my side would be to Fred and you, Vidar. We've seen that German companies and German tech companies such as N26, which are well known in France, HelloFresh, managed to expand their activities, also raised some money, had positive results in the first quarters. Who do you think will be the winner, or who are the seeable winner right now when it comes to sectors? Stefan already mentioned everything that is linked to the digitization of processes. Which are the sectors which one should look for right now, or which activities should be the big winners of this period in Germany, according to you?
Shall I start?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I would be very happy to tell you when this crisis is behind us. So no one really knows that so far. But during the crisis, there might be opportunities. I clearly see areas who are losing out, especially due to the difficulties encountered by their B2B clients in the air transportation industry, for instance, in tourism, hotel and restaurants, and leisure as a whole. That's sectors that have been really badly hit by the crisis, and all tech and digital companies that focus on these areas are going to suffer. Also, the field of digital services, in particular on-premise services, also anticipate difficulties related to the accessibility of client sites, and also the savings that many clients, especially large corporate, will have to make. But there are winning areas already, such as collaborative and communication tools, of course. e-commerce solutions and everything that revolves around them, such as payment solutions, logistic optimization, e-marketing, etc. But overall, Martin, I don't think we should be paralyzed by the fear for the coming period, especially in the digital sector. For several weeks now, these new ways of communicating with customers and prospects have been put in place, and the most reluctant, and Germans were among them, have finally got used to them. So we already mentioned the trade shows for which Germany is world famous, that have come to an abrupt stop. And even if it will gradually return, new forms of B2B events will multiply and probably change habits. So I think we should take advantage of the coming period to sharpen the arguments, explain the proposition value, to fine-tune the communication tools, and boost online marketing in order to generate leads in a different way than previously through personal contact in a physical meeting. And Germans are always looking for smart shopping opportunities, for innovations, for solutions that will improve the processes or the productivity. So it's just a matter, I think, of finding the right communication channels to make yourself visible to the right decision makers. And I'm sure you'll agree, Martin, that in order to do this, to identify these right communication channels, I know some tech and service division and press office at Business France in Düsseldorf that will be of very good support.
You know them very well. Thanks, Fred. Vida, what's your take on this?
I completely agree. What we just heard. I think that's just to repeat it. I mean, e-commerce for me as well is a huge thing with everything that's surrounding it. Definitely. What also maybe wasn't emphasized, but in sort of in danger of repeating, I think digital products that would digitize work for small and medium businesses, especially medium, the non-digitalized sort of hidden champions of Germany, the Mittelstand is a big thing right now. I mean, they've gotten a taste for it. They've started working with it. A lot of these companies have never really dabbled with it, and now they should at least be open to have a discussion about how you can help them save time and money, because I don't think we're going to get away with the short time perspective of that. But this is the time now to actually do something on that, because they are already moving. And I think also what we're seeing now, and was also mentioned, but I think it bears emphasizing what the opportunity is if you already don't have a company. If you're looking for something that you could improve, is probably online events, right? I can totally echo the experience and what I hear and what I see, that most events are just canceled everywhere, all the board conferences, everything. And I, as an organizer, I do also organize some stuff, and just finding something that would just vaguely sort of substitute what we already have isn't there. So it's not the answer to use Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype for everything. It just does not reproduce the event character. So I think there's an immense opportunity for the next billion euro, maybe even a coming out of Europe startup that will help online events become less sucky.
All right. We are coming to the end of this webinar. I'll give you approximately 1 minute to each of you to maybe end up on a positive note or a key message that you would like to address to the companies listening and watching to us. Stefan, what would you say as a final conclusion or advice or positive message that we'll have to have in mind? Your mic is turned off as well.
I said This is a difficult time for a small company in Germany at this time. It's a difficult time for us. Cancellation of all events and so on. It's you are starting from you have a normal situation, and then you go to zero revenues. I think French people with creativity and so on can find the way to go further there. And as I said, this we are living here in Germany in a quite optimistic environment. Around me, there's no one dispirited on, and so this is starting slowly. There will be limitation and so on, but it's quite optimistic, and I get each day calls with clients and so on, and they want to work. They want to work normally. They want to have to make events in a way. Our clients are events organizers. So I'm optimistic, but it's a hard time, I must say. And as I think Fred said, the difference is normally German companies have some cash. They have cash, so they have time. And I think in France it's quite more difficult.
Okay, Fred. Speaking of you, what would be your final take?
Well, I can only reproduce what I already said before. I mean, it's we have here a country that has the means to go through this crisis. No one really knows how long this will last and how deep this will be. And Germany has still 25% of its GDP in industry, and industries like the car manufacturing industry, which really are in trouble these days. So of course it's not going to be easy, but they have the means and they have the capacity to rethink slowly but surely their way. And I think it would be an error for a French company not to look at Germany now, because now again some people have time to rethink. Some people are looking for solutions and for solutions that can be fastly implemented, and this is not exactly the specialty of German service providers to be fast and to be agile. So I would really recommend any digital company in France to look at this German market, to take their share of the cake, as already mentioned. But they still will have to adapt to the German way of doing business and to make sure that they will gain the confidence of their potential clients. So again, we are here to help and support these companies to Germanize their way of doing business, provided they have a good solution and a good value proposition. I would really recommend to launch now.
All right, and last but not least, Vidar, what would you say?
We will overcome this. This too will pass. But as we all know, we don't know when, right? So I think, like all good entrepreneurs, know that a crisis is a hidden opportunity. But if you don't start reducing cost, if you haven't already, if you're not ready to be the cockroach, and if you don't have an offering yet that will offer something short time that will save time or money, get on the friggin' phone with German customers, listen to where their pains are, and then just figure out how can I sell or change what I have to make them buy. Because we've heard already, there are pockets with cash still in Germany, and it's a great market. I mean, I've been here now for ages, and I'm going to be sticking around for more.
All right. Well, thank you, Stéphane. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Vidar. Thank you, Corentin.
Thank you.
And thank you to you all for your participation. We'll end it right now. Corentin would send you the different follow-up information after the conference. And Stéphane, Fred, and Vidar are reachable on LinkedIn. I'm sure that don't hesitate to reach out if you have furthermore question. For now, I wish you a nice afternoon, and for the people hearing us from France, a nice extended weekend. Hopefully it will be sunny. Bye for now, and hopefully see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Tschüss.
Thank you. Bye.
Bleiben Sie gesund.
Au revoir. Bye. Tschüss.
Tschüss.